Come in, I have something very important to tell you.
I wonder if that's like a aesthetic thing or what.
Yeah, because apparently if you...
God damn it. That hurts my back so fucking much.
God damn.
Jesus fuck. Welcome to the Trashcats Trashcast. I'm Richard.
I'm Steven.
And today we're discussing a particularly unique and weird artist and the struggles he endured. At one time, he was hailed as Poland's greatest living artist, only to have his work eviscerated in a Nazi bombing raid, and his impact on the art world largely lost and forgotten. Today we are going to discuss the life and lost art of Stanislaw Szukalski.
This is a very strange artist. And
yeah.
This is one of the people I've been the most excited to discover their work in a long time. I'm very excited about this one.
Yeah, you sent me this documentary last year. I think it was last year. Maybe it was the year before.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a wild watch. It's always fun to find a new artist you've never heard of that you instantly have some respect and admiration for.
Yeah. A new old artist. Just so fucking strange. This is going to be a wild ride. But first, how was your week, man?
Week's been good. Been cranking out a bunch of extra shit at work. Been using the slow time during the winter seasons to, get up on our shit so we're good for the upcoming spring and summer.
Yeah.
We have a 8-week plan to get our shit together so that we don't have to stress too hard during the summer on prep. We can focus our attention on other shit, which sounds excellent, and hopefully it goes the way that we want to. You know how plans be.
Yep. We make plans and God laughs.
Yep.
Right?
And then
God's fucking evil.
And then we plan against God in the dark and await our chance meeting with him in the afterlife.
Ambush him in the alley. Right?
So that we may spite and take our revenge.
Living in spite of God.
Yeah. So that's been my week. Steven, how you been?
It's been chill, man. Actually, no real news. Christmas was kind of fun for my brother. He got some new monitor speakers to make music with, so that's really cool. It's like up in his music game a lot very quickly. And then I got him those colorblind glasses.
Yeah, how did that go?
It was really cool to watch him experience because he put them on and he was kind of like, oh, this is interesting. And you could tell he was like bullshitting. And he's like, I don't really see anything different. And then like he wore them for like 10 minutes and then he just started staring at shit. And he was like, oh, fuck. And for the next 6 hours, he was just looking at everything.
That's awesome.
It was really wild. Like we were looking up like all, the classic painters, like old art, like stuff you're familiar with your whole life.
Yeah.
Where he was like, oh my God, I couldn't see this the way I thought I could.
Fuck yeah, man.
And he was like really tripped out by it. And it was so interesting to watch, he's my brother. I love him. To watch him go through that experience. It was very exciting. It was fun.
You know what's fucked up is the way the first thing that I thought of in my head when you were like, he was just looking at shit. And then afterward, I'm thinking like, oh man, I wonder what the first watch of porn's going to be like.
Oh, that would be an interesting one.
Like a good high quality, vivid color porn. You know what I mean?
Some 4K.
Yeah, nice 4K.
I was wondering how like an acid trip would be, because I kind of feel like the hallucinations, like the acid vision shit. I feel like all of that is like chemical from in your brain. So I don't know if you can experience those colors different. I would imagine in general it would make a trip way more vivid.
Yeah.
But I don't know if the things you hallucinate could be affected by your eyes.
Get that boy some salvia. That'll do it.
Big money salvia.
Big money salvia.
Yeah, that was cool. But it's just been chill on my end. Have not got much art done, but I'm working on something I'm very excited about. So
dope.
Keeping it moving.
Yup.
Got any honorable mentions?
I do this week, actually. Recently I was putting together a playlist on Amazon. So there's a song that I found on online years and years and years ago. It's a song from fucking Ace Attorney. It's a cover of one of the songs by Turnabout Jazz Soul, and they do a cover of Godot's theme, which is The Fragrance of Dark Coffee. It's very jazzy and chill, and I was looking for stuff similar to it to make a playlist out of, just for like chill, house music. And I found like some Studio Ghibli shit, and like I made started playing some stuff from that and adding it. And then I stumbled across this artist I'd never heard of, named Austin Farwell. And the track's called New Home. And I listened to it once, and I had to put it back on because it's short. It's only a couple minutes. And I listened to it the first week I heard it. I listened to it maybe like 3 to 4 times a day. Just because it's very somber. It's very, one of the comments on the YouTube page, said it was bittersweet. And I think that's a really, really good word for it. It's got a nice kind of almost, I don't want to say jazzy because I don't think that's appropriate. It's just very calming and eclectic. The notes and the time signatures are fun and playful, but it's got a really almost a sad sound to it.
Yeah, it's just a short piano solo, right? But it's just really pretty. It's very simple. It's not complex or like ultra heavy. It just has a strong vibe to it. It reminded me of like lo-fi hip hop stuff.
Yeah, it's like it's not overproduced. It's just a dude on a piano. It's not, there's not a bunch of band in the background or anything. It's very simple in composition, or I'm not sure if that's composition's the right word in music terminology for that, but really, really nice. It gives me a boost of serotonin when I listen to it, and it's one of those I wanted to share that on the show.
That's serotonin syrup. What was the name again?
So it's called the song's called New Home, and the artist name is Austin Farwell.
Okay, very pretty. Have you listened to much Aphex Twin?
No. The
album Drugs, which is spelled wrong, is like my favorite album by Aphex Twin. But that album also was remade by an orchestra group in acoustic, and it's like crazy techno. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Not techno, but electronica. And the acoustic versions by this symphony group is just so amazing. But in the original also, there's a lot of that piano, like, not like this song, but like random piano notes and chords where it's slightly off tune, like it's an old found piano. Mm-hmm. And that when pianos are just slightly off, it can be so cool. And I was watching a video this week. There's a specific term that I can't remember, but it's like piano modding type thing, where you take like a old found piano and you put like staples or like nails.
Oh yeah, I have seen that
shit. Yeah, I know there's like some dumb group that does it, but there's some like real artists that use it as a technique to make their piano sound unique and to give the notes like a slightly haunting, off-putting vibe. And it had some of that to it.
I'm into that. I like that.
Well, that's very cool.
What you got?
I got a couple. So we're doing this first artist. I'm opening the page right now. This dude is a designer, right? Graphic designer. He's an art director, digital designer. He does CGI, typography, and motion design. So he's kind of like a one-man studio kind of deal. His name is Art Rubble. This Instagram page, this is like one of my favorite examples of a modern day artist / designer. He makes these pieces that are design work, but they feel like real physical objects. Like they're album covers.
That's what I've been trying to figure out while I've been looking at these, is like, are these real things?
They feel like it. And I feel like he has made a couple of them physical, but a lot of them, like, it'll be like an album cover, but like each piece of it, the fonts, the sidebars, like the plastic, it's not like a typical square. It has all these interactive pieces to it, and like the photos have videos playing on the album covers, like all these different weird effects. And some of it's kind of techie, which is not normally my thing, but it's like Resident Evil tech, like red neon lights and like Ouroboros kind of shit, like monster.
It's got a gothic kind of a feel to it.
Yeah, definitely some weird evil shit. But what's so cool is like, it's like the album cover is almost like a full record player, like in size, where like the album sits on these different parts, but like every part of it is designed. Like each piece could be like a finished design or piece of art by an artist, but it all comes together with motion design and video, and it's just each one feels like a special project, and I love how physical they feel. Yeah,
very, very almost unsettling how like uncanny valley the objects look.
Yeah, it's just like a really good example for me of like kind of the future of how graphic design is being approached and how different art styles and media can be presented. The art itself is very cool, but how he puts everything together really takes it to a next level. And I really don't like a lot of his aesthetic styles he works with, but he does it so well, I can't help but like it. It's so interesting.
Very dope.
Yeah. So that is Art Rubble on Instagram. The @ is @ ARTREVELL. Check him out. So second one. This is just kind of a fun, quick little story. So you're familiar with the Denver airport, right?
Oh yeah.
All the crazy
a few times.
All the conspiracy theories and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Aliens, underground government bases, all that shit.
Yeah, they embrace that shit. It's pretty
right.
Cool.
When you were there, did you happen to see the blue Mustang?
Oh yeah,
statue?
You can't miss it.
See, I haven't been there.
You see it coming in and out of the airport.
Oh, okay, cool. So I guess it's massive too.
Oh yeah, he's monstrous. That
blue Mustang, I guess the nickname for it is Blucifer because it's a big blue Mustang. So the statue, I don't know. Do you know this story?
I know the story of why it's called Blucifer, or one of the reasons it's called Blucifer.
Okay, you might have to fill me in. But the statue was originally commissioned to be built by the city of Denver in the mid-1990s, when the current Denver International Airport was being established. The airport itself was thought unneeded by some, and it was unreasonably over budget and woefully behind schedule. So they're working on this statue. They really want the statue included. As the story goes, while the artist Luis Yimez was working on the now famous Blue Mustang, his largest commission piece to date, and a commission from the city, it was being placed outside of the airport, and a section of the 32-foot tall, 9,000-pound cast fiberglass sculpture fell on him, severing an artery in his leg. The wound ended up unfortunately killing him, and the sculpture had to be finished posthumously. I thought that was so crazy. Like after it falls on him, it kills him, and then they have to put the head on the horse still.
Yeah. Well, that's the story. That's what one of the reasons they call him Lucifer, because he killed his creator, and also he looks demonic because he's this dark cobalt blue, and he has these bright red, orangish eyes.
That's fucked. That's so cool.
It's super fucked. It's very cool. And he is very brutal to look at in person, especially when you're like driving past it and you realize this thing is almost like 3 stories tall.
Yeah, I didn't realize how big it was. Damn, that's huge.
Yeah.
So that's I just didn't know that story. I thought that's one people might be familiar with, but not know. It killed its creator. So
yeah. Very wild.
That's Lucifer. And then last, but definitely not least, this is one of my old internet buddies. I have known this person, my friend Jody, for a long time. The Instagram art page is Sacred Cuts Collage. It's at sacred_cuts_collage. She does handmade collage, hand cut collage of like very grotesque, demonic, dark little pieces, and they're really weird. I have 2 of the links of 2 of my favorite pieces of hers. She's from the UK. She's really cool. She'll talk to like anyone. She does prints. She's just a very kind-hearted person, and she does really cool stuff, and I wanted to share it. So I have 2 pieces pulled up. Let's see. And I like this. This was her first piece from 2021, and it's an old photo of a cathedral with the beautiful stained glass, and it's flipped upside down, and the next layer of the collage is these wolves eating a carcass. And it's a lot of her pieces get kind of complex, but a lot of them like this are very simple, but it's just like the perfect mix of aesthetic.
Yeah. Yeah, I see a lot of what's cool. So these are like physical pieces because these are hand cut.
Yeah, she has like binders, the plastic covers. Like she has like binders full of these.
That's wild. That's so cool. I see some of like, it reminds me of your art.
Yeah.
And theme and some of the grotesque, but like not to the point where it's like gross. It's just unsettling and dark.
Yeah, she's definitely interested in the darker side of things, the occult stuff. I think like a lot of people that are like came up through some of the collage stuff, there's often a lot of overlap, but you can so you can feel the similarities, but then you also see that divergence in styles.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really cool to see how people go in different directions with a medium that is both so open and sometimes limited. Mm-hmm. But you still can go so many different ways, and she has gone a really cool way with it. I forget how I met her, but we had both at different times participated in the Semi-Oculus magazine.
Oh, yeah, okay. I actually remember that.
Yeah, through my homie Meta Melancholia.
That's why I remember that we talked about it on the podcast.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, yeah, check her out. We'll have links to all these artists. Her name, again, is sacred_cuts_collage on Instagram. Very cool dope stuff. I'm excited to tell her she's in this episode later.
Yeah. So what we want you to do, if you feel like it, stop this podcast and you can go and watch this documentary now.
Turn us off now.
Yeah, cancel us immediately. And so our primary source is available on Netflix. It's titled Struggle: The Life and Lost Art of Szukalski. Usually if you just type in struggle, it'll come up immediately. Yeah. It's a 2018 documentary directed by Irek Dabrowski, produced by Leonardo DiCaprio and his father, George DiCaprio.
Yeah, that's just kind of an extra weird layer to the story that somehow, like, this artist was largely forgotten, and somehow Leonardo DiCaprio and his father get intermixed in this story and kind of resurrect, to some degree, his career.
I think I took out some of the detail of this because a lot of it was kind of like weird.
Yeah.
But the way he met George DiCaprio was in on a movie set, working on like a landscape or something, doing some kind of a little detail or like an artistry thing in the back. And George DiCaprio is like a comic book artist, and
cool.
They happened to be there also, and that was how they were introduced. And then just years later, he like hears about him again, and it's like, oh shit, this guy's still alive and kicking.
Wow. Yeah, and we'll see how that all comes together. Quick side note, I just by chance just finished the new movie Don't Look Up, which is starring Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh man, I've been trying to watch that all fucking day. I tried to watch it this morning before work, and then I tried to watch it after work, and it wouldn't load.
It's got Meryl Streep and Jennifer Lawrence, I believe. Honestly, dude, and Jonah Hill. I fucking love Jonah Hill. It's a really fun watch. It's not an important art film, but it's a very fun movie. Very fun. And honestly, the ending, not to give anything away, but the movie's about a meteor crashing to the earth. The ending got me to tear up a little bit.
Okay.
It was good. I enjoyed it a lot. So this documentary is all thanks to these old Betamax films of Szukalski. So it's really surreal to watch him on these old films. There were over 200 hours worth of these old Betamax films. And if anyone else is familiar with the Heaven's Gate cult, if anybody remembers who Doe is, the leader of the Heaven's Gate cult, it is an uncanny similarity in strangeness. You will immediately pick up on that vibe.
Well, now I have some homework to do.
Yeah, old T and Doe.
T and Doe.
They're the ones that killed themselves with it wasn't Kool-Aid, but it was the juice and the Nike shoes and purple robes.
Okay.
Thought they were going to the aliens. Not Jonestown.
Yep.
Yeah. Fun suicide groups, right?
Yep. just keeping us laughing.
For 30 years. The website's still up. I remember going to that original Heaven's Gate website like in high school. And then I forget the stupid fucking rapper. He just had the Eternal Ataki album is based off the Heaven's Gate logo. I fucking hate that rapper in the album. I hate that I fucking know that. But it was a cool design, I guess. Just for the logo.
Speaking of websites still being up, my previous place of employment closed in March. And today I just got an email, or I got a text message that there is an online order for a catering order through this website.
Shit.
And I had to go in and reject it and inform the website that they were closed.
You had to go in and fill the full order.
Yeah, I did. I actually took screenshots of it and I sent it to my staff there, and I was like, "Hey, we just got an order, guys. We got to get back to work. I know it's been a minute, but we got to go do some prep."
They called the A-team back in.
Yep. But yeah, that was a fun little part of my day today.
That's funny.
So this documentary,
yes,
tells the story of Polish artist Stanislaw Szukalski. His troubled life and his complicated body of work. He created his own language. He's a self-taught sculptor who once lost all of his work in a Nazi bombing raid.
Yes. So this is the teasers. So Szukalski was a Polish sculptor and painter who found himself becoming part of the Chicago Renaissance. Szukalski's art exhibits influences range from ancient cultures such as the Egyptians, the Slavic, and Aztec, combined with elements of Art Nouveau from various currents of early modernism, such as Cubism, Expressionism, Futurism, and pre-Columbian art. During the 1920s, he was hailed as Poland's greatest living artist.
I do want to say I hate the term pre-Columbian. I know that it's very specific in what it means, but just fuck Columbus. Fuck Christopher Columbus.
Honestly, I don't know what that means.
So
and I don't like how I
like
said Aztec.
Native American before Columbus arrived. Before white man got here.
That's what pre-Columbian means?
Yeah.
That seems like a bad term.
Yeah.
And fuck Christopher Columbus. If people don't know, he tore apart babies and made them kill each other for gold.
Yeah, he's a piece of shit.
It's crazy.
So I was going to say I was going to continue, and then I realized we were just talking about Columbus, and I didn't want people to think I was talking about Columbus. So
he tortured and murdered a lot of people.
Yeah, Columbus is a piece of shit. Szukalski also developed the pseudoscientific historical theory of Zermatism, positing that all human culture was derived from post-deluge Easter Island, and that humankind was locked in an internal struggle with the sons of Yeti, the Yetinsini. Or the offspring of Yeti and humans. But we'll get that in a bit.
This is your destiny. This dude has some wild fucking ideas.
Yeah.
His art kind of feels like H.R. Geiger mixed with like a schizo alternative mythos of a world that only could ever exist in his head.
Yeah.
It is wild. So in preface to our story, Stanislaw Szukalski is both a long and complex story. So we're going to just do our best to hit the most important parts, also as honor of his work, and in attempt not to butcher his name 100 times, we may refer to him by his nickname his close friends called him, which was Stas. With that said, let's get it going.
Hell yeah.
So our story starts with another character. This man's name is Glenn Bray. He is the filmer of all the Betamax tapes from which the story is told. So Glenn Bray was venturing into a bookstore during the 70s where he stumbles on an old book. He said that the spine of the book was all beat up, the pages falling apart, and it was this old beat up book of surrealist art. And this is where he first fell in love with surrealist art and discovered a strange sculpture.
So this art wormed its way into his mind, and years later, Glenn saw a poster at the bookstore. He recognized the strange snaky signature on the bottom of the print, and he figured the artist would be long dead by now, but it turned out the artist, Szukalski, was living in his home state of California, not too far away, and apparently he brought the poster there himself as a gift to the bookstore because he was a frequent visitor. So he's like, I gotta look this motherfucker up.
Yeah, he's like, fuck, he lives close. I have to meet him.
Yeah.
And that poster is gorgeous. It's
the Copernicus.
Yeah, this portrait of Copernicus is just outstanding. It's so fucking bold. I love his blacks. It's just so fucking heavy. So Glenn, he goes to meet him, Szukalski, after the initial phone call, and he ends up bringing some of his artist friends with him. And a lot of these artists in the documentary, it's kind of fun because a lot of them become like relatively famous or successful professional artists in their own right. So they arrive at Szukalski's home, and they are greeted by a small gray man in his 80s with a thick Polish accent. They said they didn't speak to him, they were spoken to, almost like a stream of consciousness in his excitement.
The house was littered with sculpture casts, molds, and scattered with drawings and paintings. He claimed to be a genius and the most renowned sculptor in America. He would discuss every element of his work and why everything was exactly the way it was and all of the context. He was greatly concerned with nationality, and most of the art in his house was work that Glenn and his friends had never even seen in the book and or anywhere else. And they were not part of any recorded or published body of work that they knew of. Really wild shit that imagine walking into a place. It's like the fucking Twilight Zone. This wild character in all of his art, and he's like, I'm the greatest artist, I'm the greatest sculptor in America.
And it's in this style that like no one else has or could ever do work quite in the way he does it. Like, even if you don't love his work, and I don't love all of it, but it is uniquely his, which is so, like, even if I don't love an artist's work, if it is uniquely theirs, I will always respect it, right? So when Glenn's girlfriend had walked into the house, she said, it gave me a headache. There was way too much to take in.
Yeah, and you know all the information that he spews at him, and then he's got when they would pour drinks for people, he had to like dump the marble dust out of all the wine glasses.
Yeah, that was like such an intense visual for me. I was like, I feel like I've been in this dude's house, or I could picture being there with them.
Yeah, yeah.
So Szukalski became a sculptor in Poland at a young age. He had carved a toy for a girl at school. It was a girl he liked, and she told him that he was a good sculptor. And these girls at school he liked so much, he referred to the 3 or 4 of them or whatever as his harem.
Yeah, women were a huge motivating factor for his art. He said he made art to impress pretty girls, and amen.
Yeah, more power to him. There is a thing there, though, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I mean, we have both experienced a little bit, but there's something about like it's a talent you're good at, and like it feels, it's something I feel like women appreciate art more often than like the other men around you in life.
Yeah. So
like if it's something you're passionate about and you're talented at, it's like it's a way to be recognized. I don't know.
Yeah, I've definitely gotten extra brownie points with a few of my ex-girlfriends for that, and that later led to us dating.
Definitely. Sarah often jokes. It's a joke. It's only a joke. She says, paint me like your French women all the time. So like when we're like just lounging around, I'll start like doodling her. I'm not good at it, but it's fun. So Szukalski came to America with his family when he was 12 years old. He didn't want to think and learn like the other kids in American schools, so this is when he first began crafting his own alphabet. This is like straight
fucking
Da Vinci.
baller.
Yeah. Actually, I want to say something about this. Like, and for the rest of his life, he wrote in this strange language. His father forced his teachers to allow him this, as he was so creative and special, basically.
Yeah.
Did you do the thing? I feel like we've talked about this. Did you do the thing in school where like note taking is so boring, you start doing it in different writing styles?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and
that
you, like,
was the way that I learned to like that. I appreciate font.
Yes,
I started making my own fonts.
Dude, that was the shit, man. Like every so many years, I would develop a new writing style, or I would like I have 3 primary ways I can just like go in and out of writing like so naturally, and it feels like an entire like mood change in your writing.
Yeah,
it's so interesting. I love watching other people make their own typography, writing style, fonts.
I did an entire class in culinary school. It was the marriage of food and wine. And basically what it meant was that we woke up and went to school at 10 o'clock on a Wednesday morning and drank 4 glasses of wine while this French teacher, Chef Jean-Pierre, just rattled off all this information to us. And it was a beautiful, wonderful class. And I took all of my notes in this like kind of graffiti style font. So I have an entire binder still. It's one of the few classes I still have all the notes from.
That's cool.
Because it was such good information. Talking about like the Bordeaux region and all of these different comparisons of wine and how the frost affects the wine and shit like that. And
that's really cool. I know for myself, when I go through big life events, it's often when it starts to affect my writing. Like when at a time in my life where I really needed to be strong, I started writing in like bolder all caps. Mm-hmm. Like if I had to look at like my voting signatures being validated. Why are my words bad, though? But like none of my signatures would be the same. It's so cool. to like look back on those different stages of life or whatever. Anyway.
I'm sorry, I paused for a second, but I was just thinking, like, I can't remember the last time I used lowercase letters in like a casual writing. Yeah, I almost never. I do it like when I'm doing it on purpose. But like if I'm just going to write something, sometimes I do lowercase t's because they look like upside down crosses next to all the uppercase letters.
That's like the classic goth kid.
Yeah.
So you're like always screaming.
Yeah.
I'm at the store. I'll be right back.
Exactly. Grocery list. Eggs. Milk.
Fucking bread.
Oh, God damn it. So he was so talented to start art at a young age. He attended classes at the Chicago Art Institute. He was noticed by the professors of sculpture there, and they recommended that he be sent to Europe to learn more. So in 1908, at the age of 14, he went to the Krakow Academy of the Arts back in Poland. He says he was one of 11 students given admission that year. There was 171 people that tested for it. He was one of 11 that got in. They told him he would have to learn to sculpt with live models, opposed to just the ideas in his head. But he believed that artists should only listen to what's inside themselves. So he walked right out at that moment and bought a ticket for a boat back to America. Can you imagine the fucking audacity to be 14? Okay, so your family moved to a new country, and then you get sent back to your old country to go to school. And then you get there and you're like, and you beat out this test system, and then you get in and you're like, well, there's one, the rule is you got to do things kind of how we do it. And it's like, nah, fuck that, dog. And then leave. Like, what the fuck?
Like he's like at least 5 years younger than everyone. He was a prodigy and he was turning down a prestigious art school.
Yeah.
And like he has to go back to America, across the ocean on a boat by himself at 14.
Yeah. That's the one. It's not like you're getting on a plane for, 8 hours or something. You got to get on a boat for a couple days.
Right. So his art style, he really exaggerated the body. And one of his friends he said, he tortures the body and conveys spiritual eroticism.
Yeah.
I thought that was a pretty good one.
Yeah, and one of his quotes, one of Stas's quotes was, bend the figures till their spines break. You must exaggerate their likeness.
Which is something like you hear, like it's non-traditional anatomy, but that kind of idea is often in like either cartoons or like graphic illustration stuff, but it wasn't something, especially at the time, that was encouraged in traditional professional academic art. So he was so outside of the norm, and he was like, fuck you, I'm not working with traditional anatomy and models. I'm going to make what I'm going to make. And to have that kind of confidence in what you do and conviction at such a young age is really telling. And I feel like he definitely got that from his father, the support his father had from him.
Yeah.
For him. Because his father was this tough blacksmith dude, right?
Yeah. And of course, that's not the only thing he got from his father. So he worked so fast and sloppy and passionately. His peers couldn't help but compare him to Michelangelo. And as a teenager, later in life, his friends asked him like how he learned such animated anatomy. He told the story of his father's death. He said one day while walking home, he saw a crowd. His father had been hit by a car. After carrying his body to the morgue, he requested to dissect his father's body. So now when he's asked about how he learned anatomy, he would say with pride, "My father taught me." So fucking brutal. It's one of those, like, I don't know if that's like true, but knowing the rest of this guy's story and his character leads me to believe that it probably is. I think from what I gathered, it seemed like it was true his father died from a car accident and that he came upon the body, but he claimed that the mortician let him dissect his father's body to, like,
understand anatomy, and that felt like maybe that was the exaggeration.
Well, this was also Poland in the early 1900s.
I think I may be wrong. This might have been back in America after
he said it was in Poland.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah. But that's that line. Like, I learned anatomy from my father's corpse. That is so fucking brutal. But you can see that level of like tortured soul brutality in his anatomy from that point on.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's both very, very detailed in like specific anatomy, but also so exaggerated. That it brings like a different life to it.
Right. Like, in The Matrix when the Mr. Smith transforms and it's like the head's like,
yeah.
It's like that kind of like twisting, tearing. Like if he was sculpting a body, it'd be like all the ligaments stretched and torn.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
He was the classic tortured, starving artist as a teenager. He was often hungry and he refused to ask for food. He threw one of his professors down some stairs for critiquing his work.
That's some hardcore art school shit right there. Yeah,
that's fucking brutal.
I remember being so fucking hungry in school, and I had this he was my Tai Chi professor. This dude was he was badass as fuck, and like it was like one of the first few classes I had with him, and I was so fucking strung out and hungry, and he knew I was fucked up, and he was just like I had 2 classes with him, and he gave me $20 and said, "Go get yourself food," and I was like, that's one of those things like. That person might have known they were doing something nice, but they have no idea how meaningful like that small gesture could be. I fucking love that dude to this day. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The little things that stick with you the most.
Yeah, like when you're down low, those small things matter a lot. So he was, Szukalski. He's hungry. He's an art school kid. He's throwing professors downstairs.
Like you do.
Like you do. During one of his early gallery showings, he ended up wrecking the gallery because they turned down just one of his many pieces due to its extreme political nature. Mm-hmm. He would come to hate academic art and love jazz, and he steadily became more and more abstract and inspired by ancient and indigenous art. Upon viewing his later work, the cross-pollination of cultures and influences combined into something uniquely foreign and familiar. It almost becomes like religious idols from this alternate timeline.
Yeah. I love when you start seeing like the Aztec sculpture influence in his work, and it's a very specific style that you would think it would look so out of place, but it ends up adding to this brutal, this brutalist effect of what he's done, and these extra, rigid details and exaggerated bits,
it's all powerful.
Yeah, all of the exaggeration he was doing before, like plus that.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. He had many strange ideas about the origins of humans, their genetic background, and claimed that we were all interbred with the Yeti race. He didn't think anyone or group of people were bad, but he had unique ideas about their lineage, and he said despite his gentle nature, he often found himself to be the most superior person in the room. He was odd and passionate. He loved to look at the sun when he was young, so much that he had burned a hole in his cornea in an attempt to stare at it for as long as he possibly could tolerate. So this left him with a constant black dot burned into his field of vision. It was something he quickly learned how to work around. So the whole time he's making all this art and, the drawings and the sculptures, he's got this fucking black dot in his field of vision. And it's like, it made me think of like when I have like the migraines and I get the fucking aura before a migraine, and it's like if I had to deal with that all the time, I would be furious.
Oh my god,
I hate it so much,
dude. Who it reminds me of is Tom Waits. Are you familiar?
The name sounds extremely familiar, but I'm having trouble placing it.
He's a brilliant singer-songwriter, but he's got the deepest voice. It's like,
oh yeah, you told me about him before. That's why I know it.
misery's the river of the world. Like, he's like crazy, but it's like Leonard Cohen, but way rougher around the edges type of thing. But when he wanted to be a singer at a very young age, I believe he had a very like rough, impoverished childhood, but he wanted to have the deeper voice like the singers he admired. So apparently he like spent like days, weeks, whatever, like screaming in a broom closet under the stairs, like Harry Potter shit, until he permanently damaged and destroyed his vocal cords, like before he hit puberty. So it like permanently altered his voice, and that's why part of the reason why he has the sound and style he does today.
Hope it was worth it.
Dude, I mean, it is what made his career.
Yeah,
but it's one of those
you're
things,
right on that.
It's like you see those artists who like either out of obsession or like curiosity, passion, they do something so like extreme that it changes their like life physically from that point forward and affects their art. And that's like a weird sign for like special artists kind of thing.
Yeah.
But in a both good and bad way. He also spoke about sex. He spoke about it poetically, often and openly. He believed that before sculpting, one should get down on their knees and pray to the marble. He had all these like weird, pretty tragic ideas, and he was telling anyone he could get it, he could get their ear.
Yeah. In the 1920s, Stas once again went to Poland. He wanted to make art that spoke for his nation. In Krakow, he was becoming a hero of the arts, and thousands of people would journey to his exhibits. He created the Horned Heart Club of artists, and they all began to wear his symbol and dress alike. So he started this club. Wasn't it because he said there were some Christians that were like dogging on his work? And
I missed that.
I think he said something about like, well, you know, they said they were going to like beat him or something, or they were going to flog him in the streets or something like that because he was creating this, you know, anti-Christian art because he's making these, he's making these crazy mythological heroes and stuff. And he's like, well, what, you know, fuck that. We'll start a club against them. So it was the Horned Heart Club.
Gang.
Yeah. An art gang. Yeah. And the idea was, it was just like, you know, to honor these fables that he's creating of, you know, these pagan roots of like, you know, Poland before Christianity came through and started changing shit.
Yeah. And I feel like it's a good example of kind of his duality of nature. Like, in the sense, he's so charismatic. People want to join him. He's the most talented one of the group. So like these other art kids that are in his gang are dressing up just like him, wearing his uniform. And it kind of shows like his attraction and like this level of like control where I feel like it could have gone 50-50 artist or cult leader.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like there's something strange about him.
Yeah. If he had invested some time and energy into it, he could have easily been a cult leader.
Right. And it's so wild. Like, this is when he's like first coming up. So during this time, at the height of his career, Poland was becoming more multicultural, and his work had become so nationalistic as he created ancient and forgotten heroes of a faux Polish history that the public began to divorce themselves from his work. It was said he became disgusted with the changes in Poland and once again returned to America.
So on his return trip, he had trouble getting back into the American galleries. He didn't want to be showcased in the same places with, Picasso, or how he said, like, a pick asshole. He said, these were soulless artists, and he called them fartists. But like he had a lot of trouble, going back and forth because he had a good following in Poland for a while, but like as that started to fade, he was like searching for something else, and he just wasn't finding it in the contemporary the upcoming changes in the art scene in America.
Yeah, he's like almost came in at the wrong time type of thing.
Yeah.
He's got the not meant for this world vibes, I'll say that.
Yeah.
So in 1925, Stas participated in the International Exhibition of Modern and Decorative Arts in Paris, where he won numerous awards. However, his success was criticized by the Polish press because Szukalski represented Poland in the exhibition, and he did not live in the country. So he wins this big art thing in Paris, and the Polish press is like, hey, he's a Polish artist, but he's living in America. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Which is kind of salty.
Yeah.
He's
just at the wrong place in the wrong time.
Yeah, exactly. His parents took him there when he was 12, but he obviously still had a lot of love for Poland.
Yeah.
So,
if
I don't know.
not an obsession at times.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely. So he there's a conversation on like why he wasn't obsessed or what wasn't accepted in in America, but that was it George DiCaprio said he feels like he intimidated the Los Angeles art scene. It's not so much that they didn't like him, they just felt intimidated by him. And despite having successful exhibitions in LA, his work never really became wildly popular in America. So in Poland's culture had changed, and he found American culture to be a disgrace to him. He felt like an artist lost in time.
Yeah, he was intense. You know? And him and his wife, over the years, they were living in California, I think, at that point, but they would occasionally return to Poland every so many years. So it seemed like he never quite gave up on achieving fame in his homeland, even though things didn't align, right?
Right.
So then finally, in the 1930s, the Polish government actually requested him to come back home and to make art for his homeland. It was his dream come true. In his absence, his country had came to embrace his art.
Yeah. So in 1936, Szukalski returned to Poland, supported financially by the Minister of the Treasury. He completed several sculptures, most notably the monument of Stanislaw Szukalski and the decorated the facade of the Silesian Museum in Katowice. I think I'm saying that right.
You did that a million times better than I would.
As well as a local government building in that city. He had all these plans for shit. Poland declared Szukalski the country's greatest living artist. The government gave him a studio, the largest in Warsaw, and proclaimed it the Szukalski National Museum. It contains many of his intricate paintings and massive sculptures, notable for his dramatic mythological imagery. He brought so much of his lifetime work with him to Poland. They had everything that he and his wife owned. They packed up all their shit in America and brought it with them. Yeah,
this was his official museum, so it was his studio, his home, like this.
Yeah, this is camp now. This is where we're at.
That's wild, especially like he spent so many years trying to be successful there, going back and forth to from America, like, and he finally got the chance where his homeland loved him now. So the people around him said this is when they saw him the happiest, right? So upon return to Poland, he was awarded more commissions than he could ever possibly finish. The critics in Warsaw declared him the greatest living artist ever, and the monuments of his sculpture were erected across the country and used in building designs of the Polish government and military structures. He designed innovative and revolutionary new concepts about how a monument or even a city could be built. These drawings of things like upcoming projects that didn't quite come to be were like when I say a monument, it's like they're almost like massive temples.
Yeah, in so much of his like city plans and stuff look like if you go back to like the 50s and you look at like where they're like, oh, the city of tomorrow and like what it's going to look like, it had a lot of that kind of feel to it.
Yeah, but
and this is in like the mid to late 30s.
Yeah, it's like the city of tomorrow, but if you think of it like a mythological like Roman temple.
Yeah.
Almost. Like that's the closest thing I can think of. But it reminds me of like the Nazis had very similar plans. Like there's a name for the project, but fucking Hitler was going to do Berlin as a massive like multi-mile like road with monuments down each side of it. And there's a name for this dream city he was going to build, but it was like on that level of like innovative, bold, like massive construction projects.
Yeah.
So he was drafting these city plans, bridges, tombstones, and monuments befitting of the heroes of Poland.
Yeah. His artistic sense was so sought after that one day he received a very unexpected phone call. Despite his strong sense of Polish pride, the Germans wanted his art too. This is where things get really complicated.
Yes. So this is kind of the controversial side. So the Nazi high command had called him personally. Now this is before World War II. And things were relatively calm in Poland at the time. Nazi influence was growing, but they were not at Poland's door yet, and Staj was commissioned and did complete sculptures for the upper echelon of Nazi command. This included a custom commission for Hermann Göring himself.
And although the Nazis did politely refuse the drawing that Staj created of Hitler in a tutu, he had him in a little dress and as a ballet dancer with a pug nose and his little iconic mustache, and they called him more like, I'm sorry, I don't actually think we can use this.
I thought it was very funny that in the doc it was they politely refused.
Yeah,
because at the time
they still want him to do work for them, so they can't piss him off quite yet.
Because he was probably Europe's most sought after artist.
Yeah.
So like, it's easy to for myself, it's easy to make excuses for why at the time it would be more acceptable for him to collaborate with the Nazis in a sense. But I feel like it's one of those things we can't really have any idea of knowing what it really was like at that time in Poland for the art. It's very confusing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I also see his main ambition being his artwork in a way that it's like he's seeing success in his work and his vision, and he's so obsessed with his own vision and himself being the greatest that he wants more of his work to go out. So any chance that gets, and like this is like pre the full blown fascism of the Nazi party.
Yeah, he wanted that legendary status. He wanted to be the greatest artist.
Yeah.
And if at any point during this conversation it sounds like we're making excuses for him, we're definitely not, because part of Szukalski's story, his struggle, is like this duality in him, both the good and the bad.
We'll get to more of that.
Yeah, I just very much believe in the separation of the art from the artist. You can be a piece of shit person but make beautiful stuff. So we want to show both the good and the bad. Yeah, for sure. So the tutu drawing, that was funny because he was kind of snuffing them too.
Yeah, exactly.
But in 1939, in the distance of the blue sky, Stas saw puffs of clouds in the distance. He knew what this meant, and he ran to his studio and attempted to cover his sculptures with burlap sacks as the bombing began. Bombs fell from the sky. The Nazis had air raided the city, and they would end up destroying near 20% of the entire city. His studio was hit with a luftwaffe bomb while he was still inside.
Yeah.
Which is fucking wild. So fucked.
His entire body of work was destroyed. It was stored in the studio and it was all gone. He was buried under the rubble of his own sculptures for 2 days before he crawled out. And despite creating art for the Nazis, his studio and all of his work were still destroyed by them. And his friends were dead. It just, absolute mayhem. You can't imagine the nightmare that is to wake up and realize you've stuck under rubble and then trying to, for 2 fucking days.
Breathing in marble dust. Imagine
Yeah.
that shit in your lungs.
Oh, fuck.
And yeah, it's crazy that both him and his wife made it out at all. So as Nazi foot soldiers began to take the city, this is when he fled from Poland. The last sight in his mind was watching soldiers machine gun fire destroy one of his statues. By the end of the war, nearly every painting and sculpture he had ever put out had been destroyed.
Szukalski and his wife took refuge in the U.S. Embassy, and since both were still American citizens, so by early November, they were among about 100 Americans remaining in Warsaw. The 2 eventually escaped from Poland and were able to make it back to the United States safely.
Fuck.
Yeah.
So upon return again, he wasn't taken very seriously in the U.S., and it doesn't help that all of your fucking work is gone, right?
Right.
Like you just got like chiseled out of history, like. But people didn't like his Polish name, right? People hated the Poles at the time, supposedly. I only say supposedly because I know there was a lot of hate towards the Poles, but I don't really know.
I'm not sure how much of it was hate more than it was just like a lack of respect for.
Sure.
There's all the Polak jokes and shit that were going around.
So he still claimed to be a nationalist. And this is kind of confusing because I think it's one of those things where it's hard to know exactly what he meant, and like the connotations of being a nationalist today are very different than they were then. And in one of these old Betamax tapes, he cried looking at the camera and said, "I am a patriot without a country." He said, "I am not a bigot. I am a patriot because if you combine 2 or 3 nations, your heart is bigger and your capacity to understand is bigger." An examination of Stas's life, it feels like there are almost 2 versions of him, both the pre and the post-war versions.
Absolutely. I definitely feel that to be true.
It changed him.
Yeah. After the war, he created artwork that was decorated with Jewish symbology and referred to the Nazis as predators. He believed he failed as an artist, and he could no longer call himself a sculptor. And this is when he kind of descends into the madness a little bit. Yeah. And his really strange ideas start to take root.
I find it extremely interesting that he felt he failed as an artist because he couldn't change the world. And I think that is a theme you often see with super successful artists or people that have some of those megalomaniac ideas.
Yeah, he's definitely got a touch of that in a way that, like, the way he saw himself as being larger than life and being, better than the rest. He carried a lot of extra weight on his shoulders. And,
Definitely.
And then when it fell upon him, it fell that much harder.
So I fared very badly, and for last 40 years I am no more a sculptor. I had to give up my profession.
Yeah, he felt he didn't even deserve to be called a sculptor anymore, either because of the things he participated in, believed, or even if it was just because he couldn't stop World War II as an artist. He took it all very personally.
Yeah.
Beginning in 1940, Szukalski devoted most of his time examining the mysteries of prehistoric and ancient history of mankind. This is so fucking wild.
Yeah.
This is the madness, right? So the formation and shaping of languages, faiths, customs, arts, and the migrations of people. He tried to unravel the origins of geographical names, gods, symbols, and that have survived, tried to understand the parts of which that survived in culture today. Through his research in these subjects, he recreated his own history of the world, splicing together cultural influence throughout history and finding connections he believed no one else could see.
Szukalski claimed to have discovered Polish origins for various ancient places and people, in a language called Proton.
Oh, not Proton.
According to Szukalski, Proton could be seen in phenomena ranging from the apparent Polish origins of Babylon to Jesus' Polish identity. The culmination of his work was a massive book called Proton. Its writing continued uninterruptedly for over 40 years. He wrote a manuscript of 42 volumes, totaling more than 25,000 pages, and including 14,000 illustrations. The volumes covered a variety of issues. His pen drawings of artifacts, which he considered witnesses, were done to confirm his theories.
Holy shit.
There's a level of like getting into some shit and being like, I think this. And then there's the next level is like drawing your own proof.
Yeah.
Drawing something and being like, see?
And keep in mind, it's all written in an alphabet and language he created himself, too.
Yeah.
So this shit is like top tier, crazy artist shit. Like, it's amazing and beautiful. It'd be so interesting to go through, but it is purely nonsensical, like crazy shit, too.
Yeah.
Like, I both love it and can't stand the idea of it at all. So, Szukalski's concept of world history, he called this Zermatism, and he postulated that all human culture derived from post-deluge Easter Islanders who settled in Zermatt, and that in all human languages one could find traces of the original ancient mother tongue of mankind, one with archaic Polish origins. Mm-hmm. He said that the Great Deluge or Flood is the source of scum lines, which would later be honored as tribal tattoos. So, two things real quick. Anyone that says mother tongue, never trust anything they say. Like, it's such an instant way to know someone is crazy as fuck. And the second thing, so he had this big idea of the flood, which is very similar to the Noah's Ark story, right? Mm-hmm. But it's his own version of world history. This flood shaped the world, and the Easter Islands survived, and they settled. I don't know if Zermatt was the same place or not, but we all came from these places after the flood, right? Mm-hmm. So the idea was that humans at some different point were like water-bound, or spent a lot of time in the water, even if it was from the flood. And if you're in the water, you have the water line around your face and you just keep your nose above, right?
Yeah.
And the dirt in the water would create the scum lines on your face, the dirt lines.
Like what you see around the edges of your aquarium,
Yeah, or when you go swamping.
When you hang out in the swamp for a couple of days.
Chilling with the gators, swamping, But he believed that's where different forms of tribal tattooing, all that shit came from, was from our origins of being in the water, the scum lines.
Now, to be fair, you do see that in a lot of different cultures, those lines on the face. To be fair, that is a wild coincidence of a thing.
It's our Yeti roots, brother.
Yeah. In his view, humanity was locked in an eternal struggle with the sons of Yeti, the Yetinsini, is that what he called them, the offspring of Yeti and humans, who had enslaved humanity from time immemorial. He claimed that the figures of the god Pan on Greek vases depict creatures that actually existed, the product of Yeti apes raping human women. Szukalski used his considerable artistic talents to illustrate his theories, which, despite their lack of scientific merit, have gained a cult following largely on their aesthetic value.
Oh my God. It's crazy. It's interesting, at least.
Yeah, I got a little surprise for you at the end of this.
Oh, fuck.
Based on some of this, it's fun.
Now I'm excited. Hey, anything beats boring, right?
Yeah.
Crazy beats boring any day.
Absolutely, it does.
So his friend said his goal with Zermatism was ultimately to bring all people together by demonstrating our common background as one people. So what's kind of interesting about this is he believed that the women that were raped by the Yetis, right? Like those people turned into evil people down their lineage or criminals, right? But he believed like even though there were good and bad versions of people, that we were still all from the same like race of people. We were all one people.
Yeah.
And that I think is kind of that craziness. I see that kind of as like the post-war effect on him.
So he largely became obsessed with these theories, until he was finally rediscovered by Glenn. They, his new friends, the Glenn and all of his art buddies, they helped Stas to occasionally contribute some of his work to some obscure art magazines. And at this time, the only other artists or like followers of the bohemian art world would really know his work. But he never stopped working. He was still making these pieces. And during these years, this underground local art scene just began to, collect around him.
Yeah, that was really cool. He was a legend to them. And, they were encouraging him to still like publish his work, even if it was just in these goofy magazines. And I think it helped keep him productive.
Yeah, they would like go over to his house like multiple times a week and like have dinner with him and his wife and like just bullshit and like go out to like, parties and shit together. And like they hung out with this dude a lot. These people are like in their like early 20s and like, or late 20s, early 30s. And they're hanging out with this, 80 plus year old, artist that's lived this amazing life.
Yeah. That feeling of like being a young artist too, like when you meet like both an established and this, like he's got like folk hero qualities, right?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
Larger than life in so many ways. He had done things with his career and like that they just appreciated so much, and they looked up to him in so many ways. So they overlooked his craziness a lot of the times because he was just so amazing and inspiring for them to be around.
Yeah, like in general, he was just a wild character.
Yeah. So years later, after building these lasting... Oh, dude, Glenn, he was really cool, right?
Yeah. Super chill dude.
I think he truly came to love Stas.
Oh, absolutely he did.
I feel like maybe we could talk to him.
I would love to reach out.
I feel like that's the person we should try.
Yeah. Yeah, without a doubt.
I just had to say. All right, so years later, after building these lasting friendships with these new young artists, his wife of 50 years, Joan, who was a lifelong smoker, died from emphysema. And he was widowed, and he was alone in the house, cluttered with his work. And this was like... he was a romantic at heart. He was with her for 50 years. This took a massive toll on his physical health and his mind. And his new friends, Glenn and them, they came to take care of him in his old age. They would bring him groceries or take him out just to get out and eat. They'd check up on him multiple times a week. It was something they said they, sent him Meals on Wheels. They just met this strange art man, right?
Yeah.
And they came to truly care about him, and they took it upon themselves to take care of him when he was alone.
Yeah. So before he died, he finished one last sculpture with supplies that Glenn had bought him. The piece was titled Katyn. I think I'm saying that one right. Katyn. The Last Breath. It's simply a brutal beauty of tragic and romantic rage. The piece was a metaphor of genocide during World War II, in which the thousands of the Polish were massacred by the Soviet army in the Katyn forest.
I think it's actually Katyn. I looked it up like 3 times.
God damn it, Steven.
I wanted to do the title justice, but...
Can I tell you a secret? Before we started, we were talking about pronouncing Szukalski's name, and you were saying that you want to do practice, and I thought about giving you like multiple different pronunciations and just to fuck with you.
Dude, it would have destroyed the whole thing.
Yeah, that's the only reason I didn't do it.
I get it from my mom. For whatever reason, she's not confident pronouncing a word she's not familiar with. So even if you tell her the word, she will repeat it back to you differently every time.
Polish is particularly hard. There's a lot of consonants that are close together that are quite difficult for a American Midwesterner's tongue.
From the nasty natty.
From the nasty natty.
We hardly know how to read out here. Yeah. Bro, did you see? This is random, but I just saw General Butt Naked posted on Instagram.
Oh, good.
And I forgot we had followed him, and it's so fucking crazy. We did an episode on a cannibal warlord, and it's so crazy to see him casually post on Instagram every couple months.
Yeah.
Anyway, Stas described it as this sculpture, his last sculpture in the Katyn forest. He described it as he described the incident as, all the best people in society being taken away in an attempt to leave only the most vulnerable. So all the doctors, lawyers, and top people in their fields were bound, beaten with hammers, and then shot in the back of the head. Only the very most common people were allowed to live, which is it's a hard to imagine level of cruelty and I don't know. There's something so dark and humiliating or
yeah, very very. It's castrating. It takes away the power of your society.
Yeah.
It's all the people that you would look up to, that you look to for help or for whether it's making changes or fixing things. Now all those people are gone. They're not just gone, but they're gone in such a brutal way.
So this statue, Katyn, The Last Breath, this is what it was inspired by. The last piece of art he did with his life.
Yeah, and he called the statue a culmination of his entire life's work.
Yeah.
He'd spent his last years recording the Betamax tapes with Glenn Bray and his artist friends. They admired Stas so much, and Glenn would eventually record over 200 hours of him explaining his work, the various art theories and techniques, his bizarre Zermatism ideas, and them just joking around and hanging out. And despite his delving health, he seemed happy.
Yeah, I really like those just moments where you're just looking in on someone's life in an old videotape, and they're just hanging out, and it's so odd and nostalgic. There's a beautiful thing about home movies that I feel don't happen anymore. No one's making home movies like they did when we were growing up, because video recorders became more commonplace, around the era when we were growing up, and just before. So it was just becoming a thing where it's affordable that families just had camcorders. Yeah, now when people record, it's with the intention of social media.
Yeah.
You don't see candid recordings of people much. When I was a younger art student kid, I brought a fucking stolen DSLR camera with me everywhere, and just had all these random recordings of shit. And it was, those are, looking back on it, just feel like these weird special memories. And people, including myself, you don't record randomly that much anymore. It's just you record everything on purpose, and it's different.
Yeah.
So, he was happy in his older age. He created his last work, and then one day he had a stroke. He survived the stroke. He was in the hospital, but he knew he would never be able to make art again. And once he knew that, he just stopped eating. Stanislaw Szukalski died at the age of 93 years old.
In his will, he left everything to Glenn. After his death, one of the Szukalski sculptures titled Struggled resurfaced in Poland. It had been looted during the war and had remained in a private collection for decades. Glenn and his friends pulled their money together and bought it at an auction. As executor, so cool that they were able to pull that off. As executor of his estate, Glenn reforged the sculpture of that sculpture in dark bronze, as Stas had planned to do with many of his plaster works. I believe they did multiple of his pieces by this point. And Glenn and a group of Stas's admirers spread his ashes on Easter Island, since he was never able to go.
Yeah, it would have meant so much to him. He wrote thousands of pages and drawings about our history from Easter Island. He never had been able to visit it until after death. His friends brought his ashes there. It's beautiful.
I think they brought Joan's ashes there as well. I'm not 100% sure, but in the video they said, you know, a goodbye to Stas and Joan. So I don't know if that was just a formality or
either way. It was spiritually done, whatever. So, you know, Stas is dead. In his past in Poland, how do I preface this? Right? So the documentary, you know, he passes away, and in memory of him, somehow the Leonardos, the Caprios are involved, right?
Yeah.
They want to film this documentary because they understood like that this amazing artist was largely forgotten.
Yeah. So
right?
so they're you know, Glenn and that they're all going through. I think it was because they learned all this because they're going through the belongings in the house, and they're like finding all of the old works and whatnot.
Yeah.
But he had made, you know, some anti-Semitic statements and had some biased views, that he put in like some literature that he had made, that like it wasn't like a highly published and like put out thing that he had done. It was, you know, pre-World War II, and it held, you know, like I said, it held some biased views,
and his friends, like, this didn't come out till the filming of the documentary. These Glenn and his friends didn't know this about him,
right?
And you could tell, like, some of them, all of them were very upset by it, but some of them more than others were able to accept that it was long before they knew him and could forgive him for it. And other people did not really seem like it seemed like it changed their perspective and relationship with him a lot.
Yeah. I like that they had one of the quotes in there is like, you know, what is, you know, Szukalski? Is it, you know, a couple pages in a, you know, little, you know, document that you know, from the 1930s that no one really ever read? Or is it his entire life? You know, the entire, you know, when he was a young man, he put that out. And then, you know, from what they make it sound like, they seem like he never, if anything, he said the opposite of, you know, bigoted and you know, anti-Semitic things. He had wonderful things to say. And that's, you know, it's like
his art was I think in a lot of ways, his art later in life was to right his wrongs, right? Like,
right.
It's one of those things, like,
he definitely felt it very deeply.
Yeah. It's part of the reason at some point I want to do the episode about like dumb things we used to believe. Like, I'll speak solely for myself. I've done and said so many shitty things. I feel
absolutely.
And it sucks because it's hard to speak about something like this without sounding like apologetic to what he may have said or did. And it sounds like he did say or do some things, but like, you know, I for myself, I feel like I've said a lot worse at times in my life where I was lost or confused. And if I didn't believe, I don't know, people can change too. Like, you can be a piece of shit, but you don't have to always be a piece of shit. And it seems like, you know, most of his life was very different from when the person he was when he was younger.
Yeah.
It's hard to speak about clearly without being misunderstood, but I feel like I don't know if he was a good or bad person, but I feel like I understand his mistakes.
Yeah. It's in the, whether it's the pursuit of what, for his work was, recognition or fame or just, it's a job, he somewhat sold his soul and to create, I guess he might have felt that way later to, create the images that were used as Nazi propaganda. And, it's iconography that, his words and art were corrupted to be used as propaganda to support, the Nazi party. And while he did change after the war, many people did not, and various pagan and racist groups later would adopt his art as part of their imagery. Some groups still use his art or elements of his designs today, even though very few of them, would ever even know his name or who he is.
Yeah, I found that interesting because I know the one they showed like some screenshots or whatever of some websites of like modern day hate groups. I think one of them is the Black Sun thing, which is big in Europe. But one of these groups, I had seen his art probably before I ever knew what it was, and it's that the figure of the Polish soldier with the double-headed battle axe. Mm-hmm. Like that one. The original intention of that art was about like a Polish pride thing. Yeah. And somehow it gets in the hands of hate groups and they change the meaning without even understanding the artist's purpose or design. It's so shitty. It's the same thing with like Nietzsche, tons of shit, but it sucks.
Yeah.
It's weird and it sucks.
So Glenn Bray and his wife, Lena, maintain Szukalski's estate and the great bulk of his existing art under the name Archives Szukalski. In 1990, they published a collection of photographs taken by Szukalski of his own work in that period.
That's cool. I was also wondering if on like the websites or anything, if they have any like public archives of those beta tapes, because I would absolutely love.
Oh man, that would rock.
Wouldn't that be cool to spend like an afternoon just like diving into the madness with old Shahs?
Fucking binge watch that.
Definitely. Supposedly he also, like, as opposed to the fartists and Picassos, like he didn't even want to be in the same gallery as Picasso, or like he hated American commercial art. But supposedly at some point, I don't know if he was hurting for money or what, but supposedly he did some of the background landscape designs for the 1933 King Kong movie. Yeah. And if you look at stills from that movie,
you can barely tell. It's definitely his sculpture work. There's the texture wise of it that's just like out of context. It wouldn't stick out that way, but if you're looking for it, it's like, wow, that's very clearly like something that, it's reminiscent of his work. That definitely makes sense.
It's like, holy shit, this background for this black and white Godzilla movie is stunning.
Yeah. and it was when he mentioned it, he was like, he never even seen it before, didn't even remember what it was called. And they were like, King Kong in 1933? He's like, oh yeah, that was it. It's like
it was like a massive movie.
It's like they paid me pretty well. It's like, hell yeah, dog. I hope so.
It was pretty wild seeing some of those old photos because, meeting George DiCaprio, like there's a photo of Leonardo DiCaprio as like a small child hanging out at the house with Szukalski.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty wild.
Among Szukalski's admirers are Leonardo DiCaprio, who sponsored a retrospective exhibition entitled Struggle at the Laguna Art Museum in 2000, and the Church of the Subgenius, which incorporates the Yeti elements of Zermatism.
Oh my God, I did not know that one.
Yeah. So this next part is the present I left for you that I thought was interesting. Szukalski's works are on permanent display at the Polish Museum of America in Chicago. Another notable exhibition of his work includes Mantong and Protong, where Szukalski was paired with another unorthodox theorist of Earth history, Richard Sharp Shaver, at Pasadena City College.
Oh, shit.
So I want you on your own time to do a little research on Richard Sharp Shaver. Okay. Because we're probably going to have to do an episode on this homeboy.
Oh, shit.
Another artist with very similar theories.
Real quick, this vibe I'm getting right now reminds me of like flat Earth theory.
Yeah.
It's like an alternate way our world could exist, and these people come up with all these wild ideas to justify the history and possibilities.
Yeah, it's not, it's find a thing and then build the world around it.
Yes.
Rebuild the world around it.
Szukalski and Richard Sharpay Shaver, they team up and collab. What am I about to see, bro?
Oh no, so they don't collab. So they existed around the same time.
Okay.
Richard Sharp was or Richard Shaver was I think he was a writer. I think he also did some artwork. But he did like a lot of sci-fi kind of works.
Okay.
And he also had a theory about the one universal language that was very similar to Szukalski's.
The mother tongue.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll look some of that up and we'll get into it at another time.
Okay.
But I thought it was very interesting. And yeah, this college had found both of them and had an exhibition of that, compared them and their findings.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's gotta be strange as fuck.
Yeah. So final thoughts on the matter.
Sure. You want to go first?
Yeah, so I dig the work. I really enjoy the sculpture. I'm a sucker for intricate sculpture to begin with, and so much of his work has such a brutal feel to it. It's very surreal, it's very metal, it's extremely prolific. He's got just so many pieces, even the pieces that don't exist, there's so many pictures and stuff, and he's got a real protagonist story. He lived a life like he was the main character. Or at least, from the outside looking in, it definitely seemed that way. His life was full of strife and hardship and overcoming it through his own methods. And he may be a wackadoo, but that's art, baby.
That's art, baby. Yeah, I feel similarly. The word we've came back to a lot in recording this is brutal, because it really, you can feel the struggle and suffering and pain in his work more than you often can in many artists' work.
Yeah, it's one thing to convey emotion, but to convey feeling in that way of like, you can like look at some of the pieces and you can like feel the texture.
Yeah,
as you're looking at it.
There's both fear and power depending on the piece.
Oh yeah,
like it's wild. But so I honestly don't like a lot of his work. Okay, like
I think he's a fartist.
He's definitely not a fartist. Because I find even the stuff I don't like, even the dumbass Yestiny bullshit or Zarmatism schizo shit, like it's all his. It's purely his essence, and it's all so intriguing.
Yeah.
And the pieces that I do love are so powerful in a way we rarely, if ever, see in art today.
Yeah, 100% yes.
Yeah, it's brutal in subject matter and in tone, but it is also physically brutal. Like hard labor goes into some of these pieces.
That's what they talked a lot about in the documentary, was like how strong he was and how strong he looked. Just like physically, strength. Like the iron grip
of this tiny Polish man.
Yeah.
That artist's strength and anger is no joke.
Yeah.
and these pieces of art were just so empowered. Like he put his strength and will into many of them. And it's one of those things, not only because art's become so digital or like design oriented and clean and those things, but like you don't see many artists just like work in these mediums anymore.
Right.
And that combination of like changes, it just feels like his work is the type of thing that I don't know if we will ever like personally experience another artitude of that like magnitude again. Not that there aren't like better artists or like artists doing equally as powerful things, but there's something about just like the magnitude of it all.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's something we might not feel in our lifetime. And I'm sure there will always be more greats. But he was surely among the giants. And we are very happy to share our little piece of his memory. And we appreciate you guys listening. Please just go watch the doc already. And you guys have been really fucking awesome lately too. Like, we really appreciate people listening and sharing. And I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. I got one more honorable mention. It's you, the listener.
Oh, little listen buddies. Those dirty little trash cats out there listening to two psychos babble on.
Just talk about some shit they like so they can stay in touch.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have any advice or dishonors? I got one dishonorable mention on the way out.
Yeah, tell me about the dishonor.
It was very disappointing. All right. I'm not big. I like film, right? Mm-hmm. I'm a film snob.
Yes,
right?
you are.
I don't like many movies. I like a lot of movies.
You are a media snob.
I am. It's like the only thing I give a fuck about, so I have to.
You and Szukalski share this where like there's very specific things that you're looking for.
Yeah. So there's not many like movie series I like, but especially when the movie series that probably affect, and this is very not film snob, but I fucking love the Matrix movies. I said it. They're very important to me. Mm-hmm. I rewatch the trilogy every like 3 years or whatever.
How much do clothes cost in the Matrix?
What's that?
I said, how much do clothes cost in the Matrix?
It depends.
How long you want that trench coat to be?
Yeah. But all right, they're important fucking movies, right? Because it was like American philosophy, questioning shit. They're important. I don't give a fuck what you say or think. They're important movies. So
yeah, when we've talked about them.
Yeah, and like the Szukalski,
important.
The Szukalski twins. What are their fucking names? I called them the Szukalski twins. The twins who did the Matrix, whatever.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. I don't remember the names. I feel bad.
Because their whole story, what the Matrix actually meant, that whole thing. So they put out the fourth Matrix, Matrix Resurrections, and there were some really cool things. But if you like it, you don't remember the originals because it is not very good. And there were some really beautiful concepts about the love between Trinity and Neo being kept apart and used as a battery to power Cloud City. But they even did a montage heist. That's not Matrix.
It sounds kind of cool.
They made soft robots with round curves. Like, remember the Sentinels? They were like from Geiger. Like, they had soft, curvy robots. The whole thing was off. It was very sad. They didn't use any film grain. There were no green tones. Keanu Reeves is in therapy as a video game creator, and he can't remember if the Matrix is real. It was fucked. I keep thinking about it.
Well, it definitely sparked a reaction in you.
It did. And I can't even be mad at the twins, the directors, because they brought me the originals. But it was a little disappointing. That's all I'm saying.
Well, good to know. I'm still going to watch it.
You should.
Yeah, I'm going to watch the first ones first again before I do that. But
highly
recommend. I think, bringing back a huge series like that after, like 15 years now. And bringing it back, like, it's for fun. It's for a cash grab probably, but it's for fun. You have to have all the people on board, and I'm sure they got paid for it pretty well. But I'm sure there had to be a thing, a part of that where it's like, oh hell yeah, we're doing another Matrix. All right, fuck yeah.
And I think part of it, if like their story, I don't want to misspeak, but I'm pretty sure they said the analogy for the Matrix was truly like their story of becoming trans. I don't want to fuck that up. So if I'm speaking out of pocket, I apologize.
I feel like I heard something along those lines too, but I don't know all the details of it. So
But it's very clear in the fourth one, like there's a political message being said. And it's a message I agree with, but it just felt a little odd in a Matrix movie. I don't mean that in a bad way, but it is interesting.
Yeah.
But it felt like they were completing their story. I just didn't like how it was completed.
Mm-hmm. I don't really have any dishonors this week. I got some advice, though. Drink some water and stretch.
Yeah, I just spilled the whole water bottle again.
Cool. I haven't. I've been trying to do that more often since I, fucked my back all up a little while ago, and it's definitely helping a lot. But it's
starting to feel.
Check your posture, drink some water, and remember to stretch your hamstrings.
Fuck yeah, kitty toes.
Kitty toes.
Kitty toes.
Thanks again for listening, everybody.
Let's get the fuck out of
Thank
here.
you to Approaching Human for the use of his music. You can find his work on SoundCloud at Approaching-Human.
Thanks, John. I'm glad you can see with your stupid, dumb, colorblind eyeballs.
Yeah, man. Let me know
super
how that
excited
first
for
porn
this.
watch is with the color glasses on.
Yeah, you let us fucking know.
Yeah, we'll get you on the podcast for that. You can tell everybody.
Full interview.
Yeah. Make sure to check out the show page at Trashcats on Instagram for news and arts from the show. Make sure you check out Facebook for the memes.
The Facebook is growing and the Instagram is shrinking. Yeah. But seriously, you guys have been awesome. We've been getting some more plays. It's very cool. Appreciate you sharing.
Hell yeah.
If you're super bored, you can check out my trashy art on Instagram at Skyzix, SKYZICX. I've been stuck on this piece, but I'm very excited to get it out soon. I am making a seraphim angel, God's eyes, and it's pretty fucking wicked.
Fuck yeah.
Shouts out to, who do we got? We got Art Revell. Definitely check him out on Instagram at ART Revell. I can't spell.
REVELL.
Thank you. And check out the Blucifer statue. And major shout out to my friend and fellow artist, sacred_cuts_collage on Instagram. Check them all out. We'll post links.
And remember to listen to that song by Austin Farwell, New Home. He's got a few other pieces up on his YouTube page, but I first found him on Amazon Music, so he's kind of all over the place probably.
Cool.
Yeah.
What next episode? I forget already.
So this was art. So next one's going to be philosophy.
Philosophy. And we had some ideas.
Yeah.
That are, very exciting. Some brain damage bullshit.
Yeah, man. Sure. So tune in next week for our philosophy piece. That's going to be all for us today. Stay classy, eat trashy.
Go fast, eat trash.
That's going to sound great. that extra bass, that rattly, noisy bass.
Go fast. It's perfect.
I just put the microphone inside of my mouth.